So let's go straight to the calculation part. And most time when you are building your model, please, it's always good to keep to the standard, all right? It's because this is just a recording. That's why I've decided to just keep it like this. Most times your assumptions should always be in one single worksheet, right? While you do your calculation and your schedule in another worksheet. But for the purpose of this, let's keep everything here. Okay, so let's go to our calculation. Let's build out our calculation blocks, our calculation schedule. And remember our depth schedule. So let me call it, so this would be the equal to, let me just link this. So the tranche A, we just build for tranche A, right? And remember our schedule, beginning balance. So let me just put it up here. Beginning balance, what are we adding? Our new drawdown, right? Or times they call it new debt. So drawdown. Then what are we deducting? Our repayments, principal repayments, and we have our ending balance. Now, remember that there will be interest during construction. So that's one. We are also going to add it. So add interest during construction. Let's just abbreviate that. Let me copy our currency unit here. Let me put it in here. Right? So beginning balance, our drawdown, we had our interest during construction, and we have our repayment. So what's the year? How many years do we have in here? Okay, so so up here, what I'm going to do is I will just make this as a date. Right. So date. So equal to, let's assume our model start date will be, so let me put 31st 12, right, 2023. So we have this. Then okay, no, this is supposed not to be here. It's supposed to be 31st 12 2023, which will serve as our base period. Then our start period will be the base period plus 1, right? And our equal to e date. Let me use this as my start date. My month should be 12. We created 12 somewhere. Okay, yes. So this 12. So as I said, don't add code in your formula. So you can put this, and we said this will be, let's assume this will be over, let's assume over 10 years is fine. 10 years is fine. Right, and you can remove all this. So about 10 years. So let me keep this guy. Let me keep the row constant. Let me freeze the panel. Right, okay. Okay, good. So before we get started with anything, one thing I like doing first is to create my timing and flag. My timing, so basically my mask and flag. So that's the first thing that we need to create, right? So this will be for tranche A. So first thing, we need our loan inflow period, right? We might not even need this because what we've done is we've created our schedule to mirror our capex spend, right? So let's start doing this. Okay, maybe let's do it like this. So as we need it, we're creating those timing. Let me HBP. Okay, to create my border, and let me do my formation equal to beginning balance plus new drawdown plus our interest during construction minus the payment. Enter, and I can copy this to the right. Copy that. Okay, so on this, let me put it in accounting format so that when there is just dash. Okay, so for my beginning balance equal to closing balance for previous period. Enter. Can drag that also for the period. Right. So for our new drawdown, right, equal to, I'll just link that since we've created it up here just to simplify things. enter, and the loan inflow will come in just the way we've spelled it out, right? So you can just copy this to the right. You can see what we have. Let me remove the decimal so you can keep it at whole number, right? So this is our drawdown, right? Remember, this is only for tranche A. Now, one thing that I also love doing, okay, so let's create our interest expense here. So interest expense, right? Interest expense. Now let me link that to our interest rates. Where's our interest rates for tranche A? Enter, right? Our interest rates. So okay, let's take it a step at a time. So for our interest rates, we'll start paying the interest and repayments by the time the operation starts. So the first thing we need to do is let's work on our repayment period, right? So we have loan period. Okay, let's first do loan period. Okay, I think that will be fine. So loan period. So let's call this loan starts, right? Then we have our loan end. Then we have our loan period. So let me just link that to the date. So when is the loan start date? This is the loan start date. Or loan end. When will the loan end? Link that to our tranche A. Enter. And when is our loan period? So let's create a flag. So equal to my date that I have up here, right? Which I'm going to keep the row constant. So when you're creating a formula, always think about if I want to reuse this formula. So I don't need to stress myself or be putting the formula. So the date up here, are you equal to the date that we've linked here? Enter. So it's going to give us true. So I just want to have it as 1 or 0. So I'll put n in front of it and close the bracket so that I get 1 and 0. So copy that to the right. And let me even format it so it's showing in. If it's 0, we should just make it dash. Okay. Move it to decimal. So let's copy this. And let me change. So now this one is end date. Okay, let me just type the format. So equal to my end date that I have up here, which I'm going to also keep the row constant, are equal to my end date that I've linked here. Enter. So let me put my n in front of it to give us 1 or 0. Close the bracket. Right. Then I can drag this. So which means the loan will be for 7 years. So at the end of year 7, it should be really fully repaid. Now for our loan period, that will be equal to, I'm going to use AND function. My start date, our date up here, which I'm going to keep the row constant, right? Are you lesser than or equal to our loan start date, which I'm also going to keep the column constant, comma, then the second will now be our end date here, which I'm going to keep the row constant. Are you greater than or equal to what? Are you greater than or equal to our loan end date here, which I'm also going to keep the row constant, close the bracket, press enter. Okay, so it looks like done a mistake. Okay, so I think let me redo that. So equal to and our date up here, right? I think this should be, are you greater than? Okay, yeah. So let me keep the row constant. We'll keep the row constant. Are you greater than or equal to our loan start date? I'm going to keep the colon constant. Then the second will be our end date. Right, keep the row constant. Are you lesser than or equal to our loan end date? And I'm going to keep the column constant, enter. So then I can put my end function, or you can decide to multiply by 1 as well, anyone. So I can drag that. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is basically our normal loan period. So for our moratorium period, so moratorium, and even copy the same thing here. So as I said, put the formula, make sure you put it in such a way that you can always reuse it. So I'll call this moratorium start. So moratorium start. Then moratorium could also use So moratorium could use find and replace as well. Well, let me just type it. Moratorium period. So when is our moratorium start? Definitely that will be. So let's do our moratorium start. It's the same thing with the loan start date. So just link that to the assumptions. Immediately the start, that was the same thing for our moratorium start. And when is our moratorium end? So equal to E date, right? My moratorium start period, comma, then my month will now be my moratorium years, which I have here, multiply by what? Multiply by, because that is a year, and multiply that by our 12 months that we created here. All right, and that will give us the loan, so -1. So that will give us the loan end period. So you can see moratorium period. So moratorium is just for 2 years, and after that repayment starts. So let's get our repayment. So I can copy this and paste it here. So this will now be this will be for our repayment. Right, and let me work smart here. Control H. So you should find moratorium and replace it with repayment. Should replace it with repayment. Right, then I have this. So our repayment will start after our moratorium period. So moratorium end date +1. That's when our repayment will start. Then for this our repayment, right? So for our repayment, let me just do this. So that will be our repayment. Let me do equal to our repayment would now be what? Will be our loan period minus moratorium period. So most time when you are building your model, it's always good you give attention to the term sheets. At times, you need to clarify if the loan period so let's say this, they are mentioning that the loan period is 7 years and the moratorium is 2 years. That means they are saying, oh, no payment for 2 years, then you paid over 5 years. So which means that moratorium period is already inside the loan period. And there will be at times where they are different. That, you know what, loan period is 7 years, moratorium is 2 years. So that means addition of it is 9 years. But most times they usually do loan period is 7 years. Your moratorium is also inside it. So you deduct your moratorium period, and what you have left is the period you are going to use to pay. Right? So this E date, let me edit this. So that will be our 5 years multiplied by what? Multiplied by 12 months, which we've created here. Press that as enter. So you see immediately after your 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, our repayments start. Okay, so that's for the timing. That's what we need for the timing. So let's go back to our schedule. Our interest expense will then be equal to, open my brackets, my beginning balance plus my drawdown, then multiply by my what? Multiply by my interest rate, which I'm going to keep the row constant, the column constant, enter. Right now, remember, because for here, we are saying this will be interest expense, which we also match with when repayment starts. So I'll put everything inside brackets, and I'll multiply it by my what? By my repayment mask. So immediately we start repaying, then this can now calculate as well. So if you look at this, not in year 1, year 2, because those are the moratorium period. Right. Then we have this. Simple as that. Right? Okay. Now, for our interest during construction, we have 2 methods to this. One usually gives rise to circular reference, while the other one, so I'm going to show us the other one, at least for now. Maybe the subsequent session, I'll now show you the circularity on. So for this one, I'll just call this my principal schedule. And I'll say beginning balance, then I have my change, then I have my ending balance. So now you notice I keep creating space within my my calculations, and to be candid, that's how project finance is. So it's not as if you do this, you go and do that, you go and do that. So you need this, you put it down maybe. So because that structuring is very important, right? And the same way I'm taking us through it, that's the same way we typically build a typical project finance, right? Okay, so allowed to be is flexible. So here, beginning balance, closing balance for previous period. My ending balance would just be my beginning balance plus this, my change, right? So let me just copy. Let me make this our counting format so that once is 0, just make a dash. Okay, so can copy this for the period. Now for my change, which is the new inflow, equal to, I'll just bring this from our table so that it comes in like this, right? So this plus this, right? Copy that, and let me remove the decimal. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to use this to get my interest during construction, right? So I'll just copy this, 12.5, copy it here. And here what I'm doing is I'm going to multiply, open my brackets, my beginning balance plus my change, which is the inflow, then multiply by this 12.5, which I'm going to keep the column constant. Now let me put all this in the brackets. I'll put it in a bracket like this. Then I'll now multiply by my what? By my moratorium mask, right? During the moratorium period. So let me remove the decimal. Then I can just copy this over across the year. So you can see now, so these are the interest that we need to pay during the construction period, right? And next thing is I'll now link it to this because they're saying, oh, because it's going to be capitalized, right? Which is what we've selected here. So will it be capitalized? The answer is yes, yes, yes. Right? So I'll come in here. So this is the interest that will be capitalized and it will be added back to the initial amount. So equal to, I'll just link that to my interest during construction. All right. And this is what I'm going to get. So now initially our loan, right? Let me just sum this. Let me sum this. Supposed to be 28 billion, right? Now, with the addition of the interest that was calculated, so you can see in year one, the interest that I'm supposed to pay on this 16, which is 2, right? The total ending balance becomes 18. Then the following period again, the loan increased to 28. We calculated the interest on it, which is the same thing you can see down here, right? 16, you calculate this. The second period, 16 plus the new load that came in, we get that interest, right? And this is what we have here. That's